Hi, I'm Susanna. I'm in charge of strings here at Better Music. Congratulations on the purchase of your new violin, and I'm just here to give you a quick tutorial on maintaining and caring for your new violin. So first I'm just going to take you through the various parts of the violin, starting with the strings. Now the strings are where the sound originates. They create the sound by being bowed or plucked, and the sound is modulated by pressing them down to the fingerboard using the fingers of the left hand. So the strings are held up from the fingerboard by the bridge. The bridge is essentially just a small unfinished arch of wood. An important thing to note about the bridge is that it's not glued down to the body of the violin in any way. It's simply held in place by the tension of the strings. At the scroll end, the strings are wound around the tuning pegs, which are turned to heighten or lower the pitch. Most violins will also have fine tuners attached at the tailpiece end, and these just allow for more precise tuning. So the body of the violin is hollow, and you can see these two holes on either side. They're called the F holes because they are shaped like an F. And if you look inside of them, you should be able to catch a glimpse of the sound post. So the sound piece has a few different functions. It supports the arch on the top of the violin, and it also transfers sound to the back plate so that it resonates throughout the whole body of the violin. So if the violin is knocked around or left unstrung for a long period of time, the sound post can fall out of place. Now, if that happens, it is fixable, but it needs to be done by a professional. Because as you can imagine, it's a pretty fiddly job to set up something that is inside of what is essentially a closed box. So the chin rest is usually just a piece of wood or resin, and all it does is provide a comfortable place for the musician's chin to rest. There's a few different styles and shapes, but they all have essentially the same function. So now the shoulder rest, which fits onto the back of the violin like so. And all this does is make it a little bit more comfortable and a little bit easier to position the violin between your chin and your shoulder. It's a relatively new invention in the history of the violin, but they became more necessary as clothes got a lot less bulky and proper violin technique became more standardized. Some people will actually choose not to use a shoulder rest because they find it uncomfortable or they think it interferes with the sound of the violin. And so they might just use some soft padding or just slowly destroy their back and neck muscles in the name of musical authenticity. So the bow is made of two main components, the stick and the hair. At the end should also be a small metal screw, which you turn in order to tighten or loosen the hair. When you're playing, you want to tighten the hair far enough that it stands away from the stick, even when you're playing or pressing down quite firmly, but not so far that the bow loses its downwards curve, which is called the camber of the bow. So whenever the bow is put away, the hair should be loosened down far enough that it is completely slack. So all the violin bows that we sell are going to be clean of rosin. So tighten the hair of the bow as if you're about to play, and then you're just going to rub the bow across the rosin, making sure that you're covering the entire length of the hair. Now, in a brand new bow, you're probably going to need to be doing this for about 5 to 10 minutes until you've got that nice base layer of rosin on the bow. You'll be able to work out when you've got enough rosin on there by simply testing the bow on the strings. You'll know there's enough when you've got a nice, bright, clear sound like that without any sliding or whistling noises. Once you've got the base layer down, you'll just need to top it up when you practice, or at least once a week. So a large part of maintaining your violin is basically just keeping it out of situations that aren't good for it. For instance, violins do not do well in intense heat, intense cold. They don't like being left in the car or left outside. Essentially, you just want to minimize exposure to the elements and make sure they don't experience any sudden temperature shocks, because those are going to, at best, send them out of tune, and at worst, permanently warp the wood, which is not what you want. You should also try and keep your violin as clean as possible. First of all, by washing your hands before you practice. This is going to stop dirt and grease from building up on the strings and degrading them, and from getting into the varnish and marking it. If you do want to use a polish to clean your violin, make sure that you're using one that's specially formulated for use on string instruments. For instance, the Hills Violin Cleaner is one of the products that we sell. You also want to use a tissue or a soft cloth to wipe the rosin off the strings around the bridge area and off the body of the violin after you practice. This is going to stop it from building up and once again degrading the strings and eating into the varnish. The tuning of a violin is all intervals of perfect fifths. So G, D, A, E, with G being the lowest and E the highest. So there's a few different methods for tuning. You can tune using a piano or even pitch pipes like this, but I'm going to show you what's probably the easiest method, which is tuning using an electronic chromatic tuner. The one I'm using today is the Snark clip-on tuner. It's actually formulated for guitars, but I find it works really well for violins and cellos and really any string instrument. Okay, so generally when tuning, you're going to start with the A. So you can pluck or bow the string, and the tuner is going to show what note it's hearing, and a line either to the left or the right to show you whether the note is flat or sharp. Here you can see that it's a little bit flat, so I'm going to sharpen that with the tuning peg. And so I've turned the tuning peg away from me, which heightens the note. It's now actually sitting a little bit sharp. So I'm actually going to tune it down with the fine tuner, which, as I said, just allows you to get a little bit more precision with tuning than the tuning pegs would. There we go. Now that's perfectly in tune. And you would just continue on to the rest of the strings until the entire violin is in tune. So, an important thing to remember about violin pegs is that they're slightly wedge-shaped. What this means is that when you're tuning, you actually need to be pushing them into the headstock with your fingers. If you're not really confident with tuning, it's a good idea to try and use the fine tuners as much as you can, because obviously those are going to tighten the string a lot less than the pegs, and that's going to make you run a lot less risk of over-tensioning the string and snapping it. Now with a brand new violin or just a brand new set of strings, you may find yourself having to tune the whole violin several times before it actually settles down and stays in tune. This is just because the strings need time to stretch and stabilize. I hope this has all been helpful. If you've got any questions, just leave them in the comments below or get in contact with us here at Better Music. And once again, congratulations on your new violin.